By the way, it's important to let you know that I have started the beginning of a national campaign. But in this state, it's called the DMV Recall the Photo Movement. And several people have said to me, including Carol Waltz, said, you know, this is beneath you. No, it's not beneath me. I hate my photograph. I absolutely hate it. And what was really upsetting is when I went in on my 80th birthday to have my photo taken, the camera that they used on my 80th was the same one they used when I was 16. So Morton Dean of CBS, who's a friend of Donna's and Flavin's and others of us, said, Mitrovich, this is the beginning of a national campaign. There are 24,930,236 registered drivers in the state of California. Not a single one of whom likes her photograph, and those who do need to go see their eye doctor. And the picture of the director, appointed by Jerry Brown, Ms. Suimoto, it's a in-studio photograph, right? Nice photograph, American flag in the background. So I've asked Tony Perry of the Los Angeles Times to find out if that picture on the website is also the same one on her driver's license. Because if it is, this campaign is really going to take off. And and I know Chad Peace and Ivy, all of you guys at IVP, you'll help lead the fight. Can I really be serious about this? Oh yeah, I'm really serious about this. I absolutely hate my photograph, and if I should die before my 85th, I don't want that to be the last photo that the state of California has of me. So when you think about it, you know your passport photo, you choose it, right? Okay, so in Massachusetts, because it's a very progressive state, we all thought California was, you can go to AAA and have your picture taken. Isn't that a good idea? So anyway, I may be, we don't know. I'm waiting for this to go viral, but what I've discovered, even though I post really significant things on Facebook, they almost never go viral. It's very disappointing to me.
YouTube.
Huh?
You gotta get on YouTube.
Well, City Club's on YouTube, but who knows that? I mean, it's just, anyway. All right, so, look, when I started the Writers Series with the Red Sox, which was preceded by the Jackie Robinson birthday tribute that we do, I met this guy, and I didn't really know his story, but I certainly now know his story. And because I'm a reasonably insightful fellow, I thought, this guy is really talented. So I made him the poet laureate of baseball. Someone said, how could you do that? Have you heard of the First Amendment? You can do anything you want. And so then the Red Sox picked up on it and made him the poet laureate of Red Sox Nation. He is everything I said. Hysterically funny, but he's also a smart guy. And I want him to come. He's just the best. Dick Flavin.
Thank you, George. And we'll try to get that picture changed for you. The worst thing about it is it's a perfect likeness. Thank you for the use of this magnificent venue. This is just spectacular. And the thing that makes it more spectacular for me is that my daughter Meredith is here. She lives out here in Carlsbad. Stand up and take a bow. Meredith and her friend. When I was in about the 3rd grade, I made a discovery which had a lasting impact on my life. I discovered a poem by Ernest Lawrence Thayer, and the poem was about baseball. Its title was Casey at the Bat. And I said, wow, a poem about baseball. I thought poetry had to be about the moon and the stars and the meaning of life and that sort of thing. This was about baseball, and it was kind of fun, and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the music of the words, the pacing of the words as they lead inexorably to the conclusion of the story that it tells. And I took it upon myself to learn it because it's more fun to be said than to be read. It's one of those kind of poems. And I performed it whenever anyone would ask, even when anyone didn't ask. I was happy to perform it. For 50 years, I went on that way. And then, one day, a whole different thing changed. I was always in love with baseball, all my life. In my part of the country, I was like most people from Cambridge. I was born a Red Sox fan and baptized a Catholic. That's about the order of things out in that part of the world. So I performed Casey at the Bat, and then I took the road trip of a lifetime. Just 14 years ago, I drove from Boston to Florida with Dominic DiMaggio and Johnny Pesky of the Red Sox, and we spent 3 days visiting with Ted Williams, who was at that point gravely ill and in fact dying. And I had to do something to justify my presence with these mythic heroes of my boyhood. So I took Casey at the Bat and made it into a poem about the Red Sox of the great post-World War II years and about Ted Williams, and made it Teddy at the Bat. And I didn't even write it down. I just did it over in my head because I thought we would just be doing it that one time. I've since done it many times, but it's seared into my memory, that first time with those three old men who meant so much to my life and the life of so many people from around that part of the country. Dom DiMaggio, who batted leadoff, Johnny Pesky batted second, and the great Ted Williams, a San Diego boy, batted third. And I made it Teddy at the Bat, and I've since performed it all over the country, and if I can subject those people to it, I can subject you to it, I guess. So this is it. The outlook wasn't brilliant for the Red Sox 9 that day. The score stood 4-2 with but one inning left to play. So when Stevens died at first and Tebbets did the same, a pallor wreathed the features of the patrons of that game. A straggling few got up to go, leaving there the rest with the hope that springs eternal within the human breast. For they thought, if only Teddy could get a whack at that, they'd put even money now with Teddy at the bat. But Dom preceded Teddy, and likewise Pesky was on deck. The first of them was in a slump, the other was a wreck. So on that stricken multitude a death-like silence sat, for there seemed but little chance of Teddy's getting to the bat. But Dom let drive a single to the wonderment of all, and Pesky, of all people, tore the cover off the ball. And when the dust had lifted and they saw what had occurred, there was Johnny safe on second and Dominic on third. Then from that gladdened multitude went up a joyous yell. It rumbled in the mountains and rattled in the dell. It struck upon the hillside and rebounded on the flat. For Teddy Ballgame was advancing to the bat. There was ease in Teddy's manner and a smile on Teddy's face. There was pride in Teddy's bearing and a smile on Teddy's face. And when responding to the cheers, he lightly doffed his hat. I'm making that part up, George. No stranger in the crowd could doubt 'twas Teddy at the bat. 10,000 eyes were on him as he rubbed his hands with dirt. 5,000 tongues applauded as he wiped them on his shirt. Then when the writhing pitcher ground the ball into his hip, defiance gleamed in Teddy's eye, a sneer curled Teddy's lip. And then the leather-covered sphere came hurtling through the air, and Teddy stood a-watching it in haughty grandeur there. Close by the sturdy batsman the ball unheeded sped. Vroom. "That ain't my style," said Teddy. "Strike one," the umpire said. From the benches, black with people, went up a muffled roar like the steaming of the storm waves on the stern and distant shore. "Kill him, kill the umpire," someone shouted, "understand." And it's likely they'd have killed him had not Teddy raised his hand. With a smile of Christian charity, great Teddy's visage shone. He stilled the rising tumult and bade the game go on. He signaled to the pitcher, and once more, the spheroid flew, and Teddy still ignored it. And the umpire said, "Strike two." "Fraud," cried the maddened thousands, and the echo answered, "Fraud, fraud, fraud." But one scornful look from Teddy, and the audience was awed. They saw his face grow stern and cold. They saw his muscles strain, and they knew that Teddy wouldn't let that ball go by again. The sneer is gone from Teddy's lips. His teeth are clenched with hate. He pounds with cruel vengeance his bat upon the plate. And now, the pitcher holds the ball. And now, he lets it go. And now the air is shattered by the force of Teddy's blow. Oh, somewhere in this land of ours, the sun is shining bright. The band is playing somewhere, and somewhere hearts are light, and somewhere men are laughing, ha, 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 and somewhere children shout, and they're going wild at Fenway Park 'cause Teddy hit one out. When I first recited that, I thought it was just for those three old men seated in front of me in Ted Williams's living room. But word got out back in Boston, and I got requests to repeat it, and have since done it all over the country. And we're a week from today, we're at the Hall of Fame out in Cooperstown. We're going to be doing it. So it was a great thing. Ted Williams was the most charismatic figure I have ever been in the presence of. Presidents, I met John F. Kennedy and Ronald Reagan and all those. No one had the animal magnetism that Ted Williams did. And people talk about him as much now. He hasn't played baseball in 55 years. He's been passed away for the last 14 years, and people still talk about him. And at Fenway Park earlier this season, a fellow came up to me, he said, I was here in the park the day that Ted Williams hit a home run in his very last at-bat in the major leagues. I said, well, congratulations to you. That makes you the 1,000,000th person to have made that. And the attendance figures that day were 10,454, which raises a question. Were you there the day of Ted's last blast? Were you part of his supporting cast? Were you fully grown or just a tyke? Were you seated next to John Updike? 1,000,000 people say they were, but the numbers don't concur. There were just 10,000 in the stands, whooping, cheering, clapping hands. 1,000,000 fans, plus you were there. That's more than showed up all that year. Perhaps you're fudging just a bit. In fact, I think you're full of sheer admiration for Ted Williams and all that he accomplished. I love these kind of poems. It started with Casey at the bat, and as I've got further on through school, I discovered the great lyric poets, Kipling, Robert Service, and I just loved that kind of poetry. But I never put it together with with baseball for some reason. My two loves never really meshed together until that day in Ted Williams' living room that I recited Teddy at the Bat. I used to recite poems and make up poems on any kind of variety of subjects. This is one, the fable of the Princess and the Frog. We're all familiar with the fable of the Princess and the Frog. And this is a little poem I did years ago with a little twist on the ending. A princess by a pond was agog, when "Good morning," said the voice of a frog. "A talking frog," she cried with a wince. "Not quite," he replied. "I'm a handsome young prince, but a mean old witch put on me a curse. She made me a frog, and things couldn't be worse. There's only one cure for my terrible plight. Would you put me on your pillow tonight?" The princess was touched, and so she agreed to help out the frog in this time of great need. And on her pillow that very night was that very frog when she turned out her light. Next morning, when her mother, the queen, came in to wake her, she witnessed this scene. There with the princess resting his head was a prince on her pillow and in her bed. "I've saved a poor frog," she cried with vainglory. But there's no way her mother is buying that story. Well, anyhow, it took me 50 years of reciting these kinds of poems to put together the baseball and the poetry. And it was that visit down to Ted's house which did it. And since then, I've been, churning out all these things because I love baseball so much and have loved it from the very beginning of my life. There's this about baseball that's truly a blessing. It's a barrel of fun if you like second guessing. You can sit in the stands or at home in a chair, manager bashing, lambasting a player. You can pick apart lineups, critique every switch, send up a pinch hitter, don't let that guy pitch. Hold up the runner, send him in to score. That guy took strike three, he just swung at ball four. Get rid of that turkey, we need a new bat. How come we can't get guys like that? Ketchup on hot dogs, now that I don't like. The umpire's blind, he just called that a strike. No one pays attention, but nevertheless, there's nothing in baseball you can't second guess. But I'm telling you this, and I'll say it out flat, it's the best game of all, now second guess that. Even some of the rules in baseball, I have problems understanding it. Here is a puzzle to stump Yogi Berra. Why doesn't a passed ball count as an error? A guy lets a pitched ball go right through his hands, allowing all runners on base to advance. Put it down as an error in pen and ink. Same thing for wild pitches, that's what I think. Or a guy hits a ground ball to drive in a run. He's charged with an at-bat, the son of a gun. But if the ball is hit in the air, it's a sacrifice fly. That doesn't seem fair. And while I am at it, this gets me sore. What in the world is the coach's box for? Don't coaches belong there throughout the whole game? Sometimes they're out where the zip code's not the same. These things are upsetting. They leave quite a scar, as does forgetting where I parked the car. But I'm feeling much better with this off my chest, so if you'll excuse me, I'll lie down and rest. Hannah was saying earlier that she's a National League fan because of the Padres and places where you've lived around the country with the Marlins. And I'm an American League guy because I'm in an American League city. But this is something that you and I can agree with. And whether you root for the Yankees or the Red Sox, you can agree with it. I bring you sad news, in fact, even dire. Nobody loves a baseball umpire. Such universal lack of affection has to lead to a sense of rejection. Neither team trusts him. He makes their skin crawl. One side will be mad, whatever is called. If it's against you, the bum is a crook. And if you agree, he's just a poor schnook. He's a figure of scorn, someone we all shun. But the poor devil is some mother's son. So remember, before he screws up the next pitch, that every umpire is the son of a person who probably isn't too crazy about him in the first place. Someone asked me a little earlier about the blazer that I'm wearing with this little insignia on it. This is a blazer that they used to give out at the Ted Williams Hitters Hall of Fame, which was a big deal down in Florida when Ted was still alive. There'd be 2,500 people in a tent and all that, and I would go down and MC the affair. And the head of the Ted Williams Hitters Hall of Fame and the Ted Williams Museum told me that this jacket, they give these jackets out like they do the winners of the Masters golf tournament. And so everyone had one of these jackets, Stan Musial and Joe DiMaggio and all the way up through the present day. And so the guy in charge of it said, why don't you wear one of the jackets while you're hosting the affair? And I said, okay. So he ran out back and he got me a jacket. I put the jacket on. And afterwards, I went to give him the jacket back. He said, keep the jacket. I said, fine. So I took the jacket and brought it back up to Massachusetts and brought it to the tailor to have the sleeves done, you know, to fit me properly. And as I was bringing it back from the tailor, I happened to look inside. It says, expressly made for Paul Molitor. So if you see Paul Molitor, say nothing. I wasn't the first master of ceremonies for those events. The first master of ceremonies was Tommy Lasorda. Well, let me tell you a little something. So I was asked to go down there the first time to recite Teddy at the Bat. Ted was still alive then, and I went down there to recite it. It was going to be a tailor-made crowd for me. 2,500 people, all Ted Williams aficionados. I was going to be a big hit. And there was a banquet the night before for the sponsors and the VIPs, and I was invited to the banquet, and I got to the banquet, and the people there said, Dick, could you get up and tell a few stories? Would you mind telling a few stories? Well, I never mind telling a few stories, so I get up to tell a few stories. He said, good. He said, I'll tell Tommy. Tommy was the MC, not only of the big presentation ceremonies, but of the banquet the night before. And he goes over to tell Tommy, and I'm looking at Tommy, and I see Tommy has a kind of his face clouded over. Tommy had a couple of stories of his own he was going to tell, and apparently Tommy does not like what he viewed as competition. So this was the introduction Tommy gave me. He said, well, I say there's a guy from Boston named Flavin who wants to get up and tell a few stories, so let's let him get up and tell a few stories. That was the introduction. And I come bounding up onto the dais, and Tommy moves over to the side, and I tell a story, and it's gangbusters. It gets screams and laughs, and I'm, bowing, and I look over towards Tommy, and he's got a scowl on his face. And so I said, well, up yours, Tommy. So I told another story, and the scowl got worse, another story, and the scowl got worse. By the time I sit down, I'm a big hit. Tommy gets up to tell his stories, and the crowd had turned against him because they saw the same thing I saw, that he was disapproving of me. And so I was saying to myself, well, Tommy, you're thinking you don't like what I did tonight because it went over big. Wait till I do Teddy at the Bat tomorrow in front of the big crowd. And so I'm up there on the dais waiting to be called upon. I was on the program. And we go 15 minutes into the program, and 20 minutes, and a half an hour, and it suddenly strikes me, Tommy's not going to introduce me. And he never did introduce me. And the people from the Ted Williams Hitchers Hall of Fame were upset because they had paid my way down and all that. So it led to two things. One, I became the master of ceremonies. And two, it led to this little poem. Tommy, how could you, please say it ain't so, that someone like you could do something so low? There I was in the lineup, all ready to speak, but you wouldn't let me, you scoundrel, you sneak. As I blissfully sat there up on the stand, Tommy, on my introduction you fanned. Don't say you forgot me, that isn't the case. Tom, you deliberately left me on base. Were you afraid that I might get a laugh? Is that why, you rascal, you gave me the shaft? You're full of it, Tommy, and I'm telling you, the it that you're full of is not Dodger Blue. I have been standing up in front of people doing speeches, presentations, for over half a century. People ask me, what is the most important thing you have learned in all these years? The most important thing you can learn about getting up in front of people is this: never give the microphone to a munchkin. And I'll tell you how I learned this story. I was emceeing a dinner one evening with a long speaking program. There were all kinds of celebrities there of all types, and they had to be introduced and had to give their speeches. And when you're the master of ceremonies, you have two jobs. One, set the tone for the program. Two, keep it moving. People don't want to be still there at 11:30 at night. But there was a celebrity in the crowd who was not on the speaking program. I figured he should be introduced for a bow because people would be happy to know that they were in his presence. And his name was Mickey Carroll. Mickey Carroll was not a baseball player. He wasn't a politician. He was a movie star of sorts. Mickey Carroll was one of the original Munchkins from Wizard of Oz with Judy Garland and Ray Bolger and Burt Lahr. And I thought, people, he played the town crier, one of the only Munchkins to have a speaking role, as a matter of fact. So I said, ladies and gentlemen, we have a special guest in the audience tonight. He's sitting right outside, right out front here. One of the original Munchkins from the Wizard of Oz, Mickey Carroll, stand up and take a bow. He jumps down from his seat and he's waving to people. People are thrilled. A Munchkin is in their presence, but they couldn't see him. He's a Munchkin. So the guy in charge of the program is kind of tugging on the hem of my coat, and he says, why don't we bring him up here to say hello? Sounded like a good idea to me. So I said, Mickey, come on up here, say hello to the folks. He comes bounding up onto the dais, amazingly spry and agile. He was an 86-year-old Munchkin. So I got the chair that I was sitting in and put it behind the rostrum, and I picked up Mickey, put him on the chair so people could see him, and Mickey goes into his act, literally. It soon becomes apparent that Mickey has an entire stand-up act that he is planning to do. And I've got to keep this program moving. And Mickey's going on and on. Some of the material was a little blue for the audience, but he was getting away with it because, he was a Munchkin, So the guy in charge of the program is tugging on the hem of my coat again. He says, we got to get him off. I said, no kidding. But here's the problem. How do you elbow aside an 86-year-old Munchkin without coming across as a complete lout? So I waited for my opening. And Mickey at one point said, I'm so worried about the Red Sox this year that I paced all night up and down beneath the bed. And he stopped for the laugh line. And I charged forward, and I said, Mickey Carroll, ladies and gentlemen, let's give him a big hand. And I lifted him up off the chair and put him on the ground where people couldn't see him, so he kind of shrugged and walked off. And that led to this. If a munchkin shows up at your banquet some night, whatever you do, keep the mic out of sight. If he sees it, he'll grab it, jump up in a chair. For the rest of the evening, you'll be stuck there. That munchkin won't give up the mic because he, of course, was in The Wizard of Oz. He'll yak on about Garland, Ray Bolger, Bert Lahr, and tell you why he was the movie's real star. On and on he will go till you think you'll explode. It's a long, long trip down that yellow brick road. Let's face it, you'll be stuck there, old sport, because you can't tell a munchkin to just keep it short. Never give control of the microphone to. While we're talking about Ted Williams, among others, John F. Kennedy once said that life isn't fair. And Ted Williams was a perfect example of that. Played parts of 4 decades in the American League for the Boston Red Sox, 18 All-Star games, MVP awards, Triple Crown awards, never got a World Series ring. Whereas I, in my sandlot playing days, couldn't and never did hit the ball out of the infield. I have a World Series ring. So when people tell me that life isn't fair, I say to them, hallelujah. My God, I've got a series ring. Please do not wisecrack. If Lucchino hears about this, he'll make me give it back. I'm not a home run hitter, don't have a great curveball. I run real slow when I can't throw, and I don't play at all. I'm the designated dreamer. I think up funny rhymes. I sit up in the PA booth. At least I do sometimes. I really must be running now. I do not dare to linger. Larry will take back the ring and then give me the finger. You want to know how I got this bauble that I wear? All right, this is the honest truth. I stole it fair and square. It's been a lifelong passion of mine. Baseball, it's the best game of all. I really believe that. It is for me anyhow, and it's been a great gift in my life, in George's life, and the lives of so many of us. We learn all about it when we're young, and it stays with us our whole lives. 70 years now I've been going to Fenway Park in Boston, and it's as big a kick for me now as it was way back then. I think I love baseball more now than I did when I was a kid. So I'll just close with this little ode to baseball about what it means to all of our lives. When you first discover baseball, when you're given your first glove, you find out at a tender age what it's like to fall in love. You learn to play, you learn the rules, what the game's about. There are 3 outs to an inning, it's 3 strikes and you're out. When first you see a big league park, those stands, that field of green, you know as long as you shall live, you won't forget that scene. So you root for the old home team, a favorite player choose, and you learn life's hardest lesson. There are lots of times you lose. Then 7 decades down the road, that feeling's still the same. For all the memories you have, what counts is the next game. For your whole life, it's part of you. Its praises must be sung. For to be in love with baseball is to be forever young. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Don't go. Well, thank you for affirming everything I said about you. It's good. It helps my credibility. One of the things when I do the Writers Series, which we do about once a month, and if you're going to be in Boston November 20, we're doing a luncheon with the new president of the Red Sox, Sam Kennedy. And some of you will remember that Sam was here with Larry when Larry was president of the Padres. He's just 43, grew up in Brookline. His father is an Episcopal priest, and their next door neighbor is Peter Gammons. So the luncheon on the 20th will be Sam, his father, the Reverend Tom Kennedy, and Peter Gammons. It's going to be great fun. And oh, by the way, Notre Dame plays Boston College at Fenway the next night, and the new president of the Red Sox has promised me a ticket. So that's where I will be. But Donna knows, Barry Soper has been with us in Boston. Before an event, the night before, a luncheon, we have a private dinner to which 10, 12, 14, 16 people are invited. They begin at 6:30, and normally we're still there at 10:30 or 11, which means nobody's bored. But we have a little ritual that we follow at the end of the dinner, which is that Flavin tells us my favorite story, as Dick Flavin will now share that favorite story with you.
This is older than we are. Two fellows are sharing an adult libation one evening. And one says to the other, he says, "Say, I hope you don't mind my asking, but do I detect a lilt of a brogue in your speech?" He said, "You do, I'm from Ireland." He said, "You don't say, I'm from Ireland." He said, "What county?" He said, "County Kerry." He said, "You don't say, I'm from County Kerry." He said, "What town are you from?" He said, "A little town called Ballylongford." He said, I'm from Ballylongford." This is hard to believe. He said, "What school did you go to?" He said, "I went to St. Patrick's School." He said, "I went to St. Patrick's School. This is unbelievable." He said, "What street did you live on?" He said, "I lived on a street called Shamrock Way." He said, "I grew up on Shamrock Way. I can't believe it. This calls for a drink. Waitress, bring us over a round of drinks." The waitress goes over to put in the order to the bartender. The bartender says, "Anything new with the customer tonight, Mabel?" She says, "No, but the O'Donovan twins are drunk again." Sure.
So here, I mean, look, I don't know how many times I've heard the story, but I will laugh as hard the next time as I did the first time and every time in between. I'm going to have him in with one more story about a woman who bought a parrot.
Woman buys a parrot. The parrot is guaranteed to talk. She gets the parrot home, the parrot does talk, but the only thing the parrot will say is, "I'm a prostitute, I'm a prostitute." No matter what the woman does to try to break the parrot of the habit of saying this terrible thing, she can't do it. And one day the local parish priest comes to pay a call. And they're in the front parlor, and sure enough, the parrot starts in, "I'm a prostitute, I'm a prostitute." The woman is mortified. She explains to the priest what the problem is, and the priest said, "Well, he said, down at our rectory, we have 3 parrots, and all they do is pray the rosary every day. Perhaps if you bring your parrot down to the rectory, we'll put it in the cage with the 3 praying parrots, and your parrot will learn to say the rosary. It'll break it of this habit of saying this other terrible thing." So the woman immediately agrees. They bring the parrot down to the rectory. Sure enough, there's the 3 parrots in the cage praying away at the rosary, praying away at the rosary. They put the woman's parrot into the cage with them. No sooner do they get the cage door shut than the woman's parrot starts in, "I'm a prostitute, I'm a prostitute." One of the praying parrots turns to the other 2. He says, "Put away your beads, boys. Our prayers have been answered." That's enough.
Great to see you all. Have a great Saturday afternoon and a great summer.